Dashley again from TLC Animal Hospital, and we also have Papaya again. She's our little kike parrot who's helping us out today, mostly providing a soundtrack for the video. So the topic is going to be behavior tips for your bird. So one of the common issues that we have with our pet birds is, since they are so intelligent, they do require a lot of interaction. They need to not be bored. They're very social creatures. They have the mental capacity of potentially a 5-year-old child, but have the emotional stability of about a 2-year-old child. So what that means is that they're very prone to having behavior problems. So that's something that we can potentially treat if they're already occurring, but prevention is definitely way better to try to prevent those issues from coming up in the first place. So things to be aware of. Most birds are quite curious, but they can also be very wary of change, especially older birds. So you generally want to make changes slowly and gradually, and have a lot of patience with your bird. Another big thing that we see with these guys is sometimes they can pair bond with a person, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, except that it can lead to some inappropriate behaviors and potentially some reproductive problems. So we don't want to necessarily encourage that. A healthier relationship would be more of a flock mate or other family member. So things that we want to avoid, we do want to try to avoid having them perch on our shoulders, which a lot of birds will naturally want to climb to the shoulder because they see our face as being us, and so they want to sit right next to us on our shoulder, which is like a little branch to them. They also like to be high, and this is one of the higher parts of our body. But it does encourage the pair bonding behavior, and it can also lead to potentially injuries. So even birds that are not necessarily aggressive might become startled, and they might bite to try to warn you of the danger. There's some very sensitive structures around our face, so we definitely don't want to be bit there. Jewelry, so earrings, necklaces, things like that. These guys can be very attracted to, and so they might injure you trying to get to those, and if they do get them, they could potentially ingest them, and then that could also cause problems. Petting around their head, let me pet you. For most birds is enjoyable. And that's fine, but you do want to try to avoid stroking or petting along their back or the sides of their wings here, because that's more of a mate-like behavior. We also want to avoid extended petting sessions or cuddling sessions, because then that also encourages mate-like behavior. Certain species of birds, cockatoos are going to be a prime example. We really do tend to see a lot of issues with those behaviors. You can have female birds that become chronic egg layers and can have a lot of serious health issues related to that. The male birds might strain and potentially prolapse their cloaca, which is going to be the opening that they use to urinate, defecate, and mate with. And those things we definitely want to avoid. In general, we do want to try to reward positive behaviors, and that could be things like stepping up, going into a carrier, playing with a certain toy, foraging, making a pleasant noise. Behaviors that you want repeated, you want to reward with either praise or treats or food. Negative behaviors, so things like screaming, screaming, biting, feather picking, we don't want to reinforce. And doing things like yelling at the bird, telling them to stop that, that's actually a form of reinforcement. So you want to ignore it in that you don't want to respond to the bird doing it, but you do want to address it. So especially things like feather picking and destructive type behaviors, I would definitely try to take these guys to your veterinarian so that they can do an assessment. Sometimes there can be medical reasons for feather picking. So we want to evaluate for that, and then if it is behavioral in nature, then we would want to institute sometimes medications, oftentimes foraging and behavior modification to try to address that and try to reverse it. Some helpful behaviors to try to train for these guys are things like step up, step down, staying on their perch, target training where you train them to touch their beak to a target, towel training so that they learn to accept being swaddled in a towel, so that later on if they need medical procedures it's not as stressful for them. Some birds you can even teach them to present their feet for nail trims, their wings for exams. So taking the initiative to get those behaviors trained in these guys, it can definitely pay off in the long run when it comes to things like routine vet care, or if they do get sick and need more intensive care later on. There's some really good resources on how to train birds for that. Goodbirdinc.com is one. There's also some YouTube videos and some other resources that go over that in more detail. Training is also a really good way to bond with your bird. So it's fun and games too, but it serves a purpose.